No. Oh, hello and welcome. I'm just going to introduce the International Communication Project's podcast for this season. Is going to come from, we're going to have a conversation this evening between New Zealand Speech Language Therapists Association and the Philippines Association of Speech Pathologists. So I'm just going to read a little information about the background of the International Communication Project for us. The International Communication Project, the ICP, is an advocate for those with communication disabilities, as well as their families, caregivers, and communication professionals. The ICP highlights the importance of human communication and how communication disabilities significantly impact every aspect of life. Established in 2014, the ICP is built on the premise that communication is vital to life, yet it is largely ignored as a disability. The World Health Organization's World Report on Disability estimates that roughly 1 billion people around the world are living with some form of disability. However, the authors of the report acknowledge that people with communication disabilities may not be included in this estimate, despite the fact that they encounter significant difficulties in their daily lives. The ICP joins organisations from around the world in advocating for people with communication disorders and raising the profile of communication disabilities. And that is why we're here this evening, to just have a talk together from two different parts of the world. So I'm Annette Rotherham. I'm from the New Zealand Speech Language Therapists Association. And I'll hand over to these wonderful people from the Philippines to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Balazuela, currently the president of the Philippine Association of Speech Pathologists.
Mabuhay from the Philippines. I am Ferdeliza Garcia, the chair of the Professional Committee on Ethics and Standards of the Philippine Association of Speech Pathologists.
So it's lovely to get together and just actually connect, isn't it? And it's so nice that we have this technology these days to meet. I have been able to meet some of your members in the past. I met Susie at the conference in Taipei, the IALP one, in 2019, and that was awesome. So I think it's great that the world is getting a little bit easier to connect with each other.
Yeah.
So a little bit of background. You guys, you're established in fairly recent times, 1991. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of speech therapy in the Philippines?
Okay, so we were, as you could see in our logo, we were established in 1991 by a handful of our professors in the University of the Philippines. And we have been in existence for 30 years already. We celebrated our 30th anniversary last year. And we are 700 plus strong in membership. And yeah, pretty much still young compared to the other organization. But yeah, we're getting there.
Awesome. And I would just give some background about our New Zealand Speech Language Therapists Association. We turned 75 in 2021. So we worked out that we must have been established in about 1946, post-World War II. And that meant that, so we started out very small as well. And the first training program that was a bachelor's started in the 1980s. In New Zealand, and then was accredited for the first time, I think, in I think late 90s. So yeah, it's interesting, the history, isn't it, when you look at those histories, and it's really great to look on websites and see what's gathered there. Our membership has actually reached 1,000 members last year, so we've definitely grown in the last little while as well. But I guess what we, so we've got that in common, the size of our organisations. And but the difference is, in New Zealand we have 5 million population, And
Yeah.
Tina, what's your population of Philippines?
We're probably 110 million right now.
So a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I think that that just shows too that you guys are doing an amazing job of trying to reach all the needs of all those people in the Philippines who must have speech, language, and swallowing
Yeah.
needs.
And also, I forgot to mention that we have four schools right now, turning out more speech language pathologists. So we're hoping that probably in the next 2 years we'll be having like 1,000 more, a thousand, at least 1,000 in membership. And I hope that we have that steady growth. I mean, we have 110 million population. We need more speech language pathologists.
Exactly. I think that you've got some good lofty goals there for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know that in New Zealand we'd love more speech language therapists as well. So we have 4 programs. So there's lots of nice similarities. We're both little island nations.
Yeah.
We've got about as many speech therapists in each country. So that's great. I guess there's some differences too. Tina, you were touching on earlier the structure of how people are accessing speech therapy, and maybe what the pandemic did to impact people being able to access speech therapy.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it was both good and bad. Good because through telepractice we were able to target a lot of people in a lot of provinces due to the technology available for them. So we were able to service those who don't have the capability to see speech language pathologist in private practice. However, because of the pandemic and the recent the recent changes in going back to the new normal, we're having a hard time in terms of mobility in providing face-to-face services right now. So yeah, the pandemic gave us both good and bad avenues in delivering our services.
I'd have to agree about New Zealand. I think we embraced telepractice in the first in 2020 in the first lockdown, and I think we discovered that as speech language therapists, we were actually quite good at telepractice, and it worked well for the populations and people we worked with. But I guess as we move back, as you say, into the new normal, people are wanting that face-to-face input, aren't they? And families are wanting to see you in person. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. But I think we have learned too that sometimes it's a great way to reduce travel and to see people quickly and maybe even increase their input a bit. You know, you can do a one session in person one week and on Zoom another. So there's some flexibility that telepractice brings to our work. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking into a more hybrid type of practice, I guess, in the
Yeah,
next
absolutely.
few years. Yes.
Yeah, I can see that happening here too. So the International Communication Project really advocates that communication is a basic human right. And I guess the main way we all work on that in our own countries, I have this, somebody had this catchphrase one time that I really like. It's think global, act local. And yeah, so I guess we have talked a bit about what are we doing in our own countries. And so Fidelisa, do you want to touch on what your organisation is doing to perhaps advocate for people with communication disability and who you might be partnering with in your country?
So we've been lucky with that we are active along with the other professional associations, the OTs and PTs, in advocating within the different sectors of health, social work, disability affairs, on really looking into the needs of persons with disabilities. So we partner, we try to sit in technical working groups to really advocate for policies or review policies and programs being uh, conceptualized for persons with disabilities. We also try to converse with organizations of persons with disabilities at various levels. So at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level, so that the advocacy would be pushed not only by professionals, but even among persons with disabilities in their families. So that's a stronger voice that would say that this is what we need. We need these services. We need some support for this because we cannot, uh, we, some of them are able to access these services, but majority in the Philippines would be living in poverty and would have even issues on their basic needs. What more for their other needs, such as their health needs and capacity building, such as rehabilitation needs. So these are just but some groups that we work with, and other groups that would have similar causes. So like um, parents of children with disability support groups, parents of children with autism, parents of children with Down syndrome, parents of children with CP. They've been actively advocating for the needs of their children, but we work along with them. So if they need like activities for their members who have no access to rehabilitation services, then we try to partner with them in providing Thera-free missions. So we go to their localities, or our members would try to organize and partner with them.
Okay, great. And so that really is, you're advocating for funding for speech language therapy, and you're advocating just for people to understand that there are people with a communication disability, and to raise awareness of that communication disability. Yeah, I think we're quite similar in New Zealand. We've always run an annual awareness week, and often it has a two-pronged focus of raising awareness of the people who have communication and swallowing needs, but also the profession of speech language therapy. So they go together, don't they? So you know the stories of the people who live with the lived experience are very powerful to help people understand the importance of the role of a speech language therapist. And we have an awareness week, and we also like to support other people's awareness week that we're affiliated with. As you say, all those other NGOs and disability organizations, there's so many of them, and we try and work very closely with those organizations as an association as well. So yeah, definitely good. Social media really helps, I think, to build those networks and to support each other. Yeah, great. So what other things do you think we can do together as as a collective of different countries, like not just New Zealand and the Philippines, but maybe some of the other countries? What other things can we do together to raise awareness, do you think, or to influence policy?
I guess, like what I mentioned earlier, probably within the region, we should also look into how we are at par with our ASEAN neighbors when it comes to integrating our services within the region. If we are at par or we need to have more support, I guess, like in Singapore, they're more into delivering these services to the populace. So we need to uh, probably know the best practices within the region and implement it in our own country. That would be quite helpful, I guess, aside from creating awareness for
Yes.
our profession.
Yeah, I think if we're all working and striving for knowing what best practice looks like, and then we can take that to the fund holders and say, this is what actually we need to make any difference to these people, to see them communicating effectively and participating in their lives. We have a campaign in New Zealand, or it's been the disability sector's campaign. It's called Enabling Good Lives, and it has principles and it has the whole approach that's to be taken, and it's very future focused about where we want to see people in New Zealand and how they're going to live with their disability and how they're going to thrive and, you know, lead the best lives they can. So it's a lot. We've all got a long way to go, but I feel really positive that we're all walking and going in the right direction.
Yeah, there's something similar with ASEAN, this ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025. So there's also that push within the region.
Right. Awesome. So yeah, there's so many great resources out there too, isn't there? I think we can find ways to share those with each other as well. Excellent. Okay. Well, I think that, you know, we've had a good chat here for you know, a little while here, and I think we've got some good sound information as to what we're all doing in our countries, and we all still really firmly believe that you know, communication is a basic human right, and we really want to be able to see more and more people accessing the right services at the right time that can make a difference. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts, Tina?
Well, I just want to say, Annette, that in behalf of our association and in behalf of our country, we would like to thank you for giving us this chance of presenting our association in this International Communicator project. And thank you for initiating this podcast and inviting us and giving us the platform.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
very
most
much.
welcome. Thank you for participating, and you know, it's all about us having a united voice. Yeah. So we look forward to further collaborations, and maybe we'll get to see each other at one of our international conferences sometime in the future.
Who knows? Yeah. Looking
Yeah.
forward to that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, I'm going to stop the recording.